come and meet a foreign owner. Then for once, my people and them would be all enjoying the work that they're doing, profiting or losing. Then again, we will have a true productive society instead of investing money in screw-up industry. So the answer, Mr. Minister, for plenty more production. I say all you people really need is financial motivation to make steel pan. Compose a para, video the limo, record calypso, copper beater, short story writer. So all we have to do is channel properly our people and this state energy.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
So the treasury broke and they say that recession jamming. So no foreign countries really start migrating. They lose faith in the country, they say we gone down the drain. They say no more could we see happy times again. But the will to recover in my people like have confidence. Although many may seem to feel that I talking nonsense. But the majority of we decide we're not going to run, because now is the time to show we patriotism. For we country facing, it's that is our. So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just get one more try, life could be much sweeter. From the country, we analyze just what was the problem. Yes, we start making very positive moves to solve them. We fired the old section managers we had working, and it's a new group we went and we bring in. And if the goods we require, them new managers not supplying. When the election time come back wrong, it's new ones we bring in. But if it's one thing about my people, I could guarantee that they would never ever put party before country. And if the country facing is that is sour, and our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, we have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life would be much sweeter.
And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. The song and the voice of Leroy Calise, Dr. Leroy Calise, the Black Stallion who passed away earlier this year. Many think that he is one of the greatest of all times. Leroy Khali's the Black Stallion. We can make it if we try. Some optimism, you know, the pessimistic news that comes out of Guyana every day is not always good for the soul. So some optimism there, uplift a song, uplifting calypso, nation building calypso. We can make it if we try. The Black Stallion also sang, look on the brighter side, for the brighter side is where we're going. And of course, we would not have gotten here today if those who came before us did not try and didn't look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Look on the brighter side. Good evening to you, whether you're joining us from Guyana or you're joining us from outside of Guyana, the wider Caribbean, North America, Europe, those of you who are joining us from Africa, those of you who are joining us from South America. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. This evening, of course, is GHK Lall, who by now needs no introduction. He's all over the place and perhaps the most prolific writer. And I say that not just as a columnist, but I think he writes more than the reporters. Very prolific. And as someone who has been doing writing, I can tell you, for someone to do that volume of writing on a regular basis and not fall into the gutter, it's quite a thing. We've had daily columnists, but they fell into the gutter 90% of the time. To write every day, almost every day, as the issues come up, is quite a thing. You know, writing starts here, or some would say in the belly, and then the pen takes over. It's not an easy thing, as those of you who write would know. Big up to Brother GHK Lall. Note I said writing and not fall into the gutter. Always giving us hope, always taking us where sometimes some of us are uncomfortable about going. It's one thing about politics in general, but Guyanese politics, you know, we tend to be cautious. We tend to not wanting to go to places that are uncomfortable. And of course, one understands that. That is why we always have the need for what I call, and many others, call the radical voice in our society, because it's the radical voice that goes to these places that we are sometimes uncomfortable. People sometimes feel that radical mean people who cause confusion. No, radical mean going to the root. Going to the root. And as you go to the root of the things, you cannot help but saying the things that others want to say, but for whatever reason, the fear of losing their job, the fear of offending people and so on, don't want to say. The radical voice. Any society that loses its radical voice is dying or dead. There's always been the radical voice. And thank heavens, Guyana, perhaps because of the nature of our society, because when you look at the rest of the Caribbean, a lot of the radical voices have mellowed somewhat. In fact, a lot of the radical parties that came up in the 1960s, all of them ceased to exist. Of that group, the WPA is the only of the radical parties of the Anglophone Caribbean that has some presence in the society. And it says something about the Guyanese society. We refuse to give up that radical voice, because often it is that radical voice, whether it was the radical voice against colonialism. We sometimes remember the Burnhams and Jagans and Williams and Byrd. They were radical voices against colonialism in the 50s and the 60s. But then the new radical voices, the sons and daughters of independence who grew up with independence, they took over that radical mantle. And, it has passed on from generation to generation. As I said, Guyana continues to hold on to that radical voice, because it's that voice that cleans our eyes sometimes. Lasana Kwesi, a little-known poet of Trinidad and Tobago, he was the poet of the Black Power movement there. He said, you have to think with the mind of the people. You got to speak with the voice of the people. You got to hear with the ears of the people. Always, always returning us to the roots. And in Guyana, we have to constantly, always since independence, return the society to its moorings, to the roots, to the source, as Amilcar Cabral from Guinea-Bissau, the Guinea-Bissau revolutionaries, return to the source. Always coming back and balancing this society. And God knows our country needs a lot of balancing today. We are losing it. And sometimes we think that when the government loses it, that's it. But when they lose it, they pull us along with them. The government begins to lose it and the opposition loses it. And the rest of us lose it. Our sanity, our political sanity. We succumb to fear. Awasadu. So it's not just the government that is being consumed, the PPP. All of us, as Martin Carter said, like a jig shakes the loom, like a web is spun the pattern. All are involved or are consumed. We are all being consumed by the madness in Guyana, the madness. And so we need voices like the GHK, Lalls, and others to pull us back. All of us. And we should always cherish those who have the courage to stand apart. Those who refuse to go along with the tide. Swim against the tide. Swim against the tide that often takes us to the edge. How many times have we gone to the edge? Some would say in 1961 to 64, we actually tipped over. And so many times after then, we have gone to the edge, and then the political bosses pull us back. But then they go back to doing the same thing. Common sense doesn't prevail. We have to go to the edge. When we went to the edge in 1997, 98, then they sat down with the ordinance and accord. But as soon as they sign it, they start the nonsense again. The shooting up badness that was planted in Buxton. Because it didn't emerge there, it was planted there. And then the government, with its agent, instead of getting rid of it, they joined it for political capital. And it's not until somebody interfered with an American and the American said, enough is enough. Then we pull back. And this government is galloping to the edge again, scant respect for what our history has taught us, when we allow ourselves to be driven and pulled by the tide of greed, settling political scores, and we are heading to the edge again. Thank God, some of us are determined that we will not go to the edge. Some of us are determined that we will not go to the edge again, because we will not always be spared. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here on a Tuesday evening, doing what history calls on us to do, to hold our country together, so that we can live another day. Good evening, Brother Gabriel.
Good evening, everyone.
And
Good
how
to
have
be
you
here.
been doing?
Good evening to everyone, wherever you may be.
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Wonderful. Now, another fortnight of scandals. You come here every fortnight, every 2 weeks. Another fortnight of scandals, another fortnight of denial, another fortnight of dismay. I read your columns. You express what we all feel, but yours is always a voice that reminds us, as Teacher George, the old philosopher and Proverbs man from Buxton, used to say, you got to part your stomach in two when you're dealing with politics. He said, part for vomit and part for eat. And you always pull us over to the one that prevents us sometimes from vomiting. We eat and the food is digested and do what it is supposed to do. How you manage? I never really asked you that question. How do you manage?
Well, first of all, I have to record my appreciation for your kind comments to our listeners, our viewers. I heard you talk about Black Stalin and one of the greatest, Let Us Try. Here it is in a nutshell. I get up usually at around 3 o'clock, and after prayers and I read my daily word, and I do some reflection on by myself. Unless I write something, I don't feel right. I mean, I can write about America and Wall Street and immigrants, things I've been familiar with. But at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, what is it that I can put out there that holds us together, that makes us think that where we are is an untenable place, that we cannot continue like this, and that we need to keep on pursuing a pathway that leads us to truth, that leads us to a better place than where we are. And whatever little that I hear, whatever little I can put out, I do. I don't think you know the full range of where I am writing. You may see Demerara Waves and Stabrook and Kiteshore. There's the Village Voice. There are radio programs. There are spiritual programs. There's a Catholic Standard. So this has been going on for years on a weekly basis. Now, I've heard this thing called about writer's block. I don't suffer from that. I don't suffer from right. I don't know what it is. But what happens to me if you call me on the phone or somebody rings the bell for the gate and I go and I come back, I don't want to continue. I kind of lose interest. But when I'm there, I'm in that Michael Jordan zone. I'm unconscious. And it takes me about 35 minutes to do about 800, 900 words. The thoughts are there. The vocabulary I was told is too heavy. So I've kept it simple and I had to remake myself because the vocabulary that you had that was pretty sophisticated, that you had 7 options, now you're down to 2 when you keep it simple. But it's better. The professors can hear you, can read you, and understand you, and the peasants too, and the people too. So I think that I do this because there's a peace, no matter what the issue is. I have risen beyond that line where you can say something and it gets to me, or I see an issue. When I see an issue, I'm like, man, why are we going this way again? Why does it have to be this way? How is it that we have intelligent leaders? And let's give our leaders that. We have intelligent leaders, patriotic leaders, I would think, and reasoning, not intellectual firepower, reasoning, common sense reasoning would say this country and its citizens, oil, no oil, we are going around in circles and we could do better than this. And this is my calling. This is my calling. A change is going to come. And whatever little that I can articulate, however I do so here or somewhere else or some other day, it counts in the grand picture, in the overall scheme. It, it, it counts, I think, whether you agree with me or you don't. And that's part of the motivating factors that I feel to my soul. Brother David, I feel to my soul, and I tell those listening, and I do not think, I hope I don't come across as presumptuous or arrogant. I feel that what I'm doing is God's work. I feel that He's looking at Guyana and say, I've given you all these things, this natural resources wealth. I've given you a set of environmental conditions where all your neighbors have hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes and mudslides. You've got flooding because of your basin in the city. You've got flooding in the coastline. So I've given you that natural disaster protection to the very great extent, and I've given you all these great natural resources. The downside is that we have a pantheon of leaders that have let us down. So we as the people, we as the voices who have had the experience, who've had the exposure, a greater onus or burden is placed, a greater demand is placed on us to say, well, look, I hear you, but it should be so. And why is it not so? When you yourself know it's so. Let's cut through the semantics. Let's cut through the politics. Let's cut through our racial prejudices, bigotries. And let's talk as human beings, one to each other. We have the ability to think, to reason. And, politics is a brutal art. But I think we can do better. I don't want to see this country be like the America that I'm reading about now that I left, where there's the Donald Trump faction and there's the other side, the progressives and leftists and radicals and militias and whomever. I feel that unless I lend my pen and my voice and my mind to our environment, that we could go quicker to that precipice. We are already very close to it. We could go quicker to that edge of the precipice. Now, I want to tell you something personal. I want to share something with the audience. When I left here about 40 years ago, I remember saying at the airport to my mom, who's no longer here, may God rest her, I said, I'll be back. Don't ask me where that come from. I had $50 in my pocket and no roof over my head. I said, I'll be back. So I, in my foolishness, silliness, thought that it will take me 10 years and I'll go to school and I'll do this and I'll make some money and I'll come back and give back to my country. Lovely. It took me 31 years. I lost both parents. I lost my wife, but I've regrouped. And I'm saying to myself, it wasn't you that came back. It was part of the will of the Father. It was His will that you come back here and do what I am doing today. Not sit on my hands, not criticize people and condemn people, but to say, listen, brothers and sisters, we can do better because we have it in us. We can have a different kind of conversation. We can have a different kind of relationship, a real comity of communities, a real fraternity of peoples, right? I believe strongly in brotherhood and fellowship, and I don't want to overdo or people believe I'm preaching. But unless we have, call it what you want, one Guyana, one people, one. At the end of the day, it's that fraternity, that's internal fraternity. Instead of a fraternal, we have had the fratricidal over the decades. And we are poised, again, I sense, I fear, I apprehend that we're not in a good place. We're in a terrible place. So therefore, sitting back and saying, well, look, that's somebody else's business, that's not an option for me. I don't think it's an option for you. Look, I am not 37. I am not 47. But like you say, and I don't see myself as a radical. I see myself as a reasonable citizen concerned about reasonable issues, but troubling, greatly troubling reasonable people. And the Indians, Amerindians, Africans, the entire internal diaspora of Guyana. Politically, we have a diaspora here, not going from from Georgetown to New York, but in terms of how we are traveling, in terms of how we are voyaging from one section of our head to another for the expediency of survival. This is what is going on here. So I'm saying, look, we can do this better, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Opposition Leader. Let us put our hands together. Look at us. We are quarreling about the same old things whilst our exploiters are going on unchecked. This is Columbus and her Pizarro and Cortez. This is General George Armstrong Custer. This is Dwyer in India. This is Rooks. I think I have that right. Rooks Drift, right, in Africa, right? And so look, we have an obligation. We have an obligation as citizens to let our voices be heard, and that's where I am.
Let
That's
our
why I
voices. Yeah. GHK, I'm going to take you off script for a little while. We know we have some political issues, but I'm always troubled by the fact that things happen around us in the society and we get locked into the partisan politics that we don't see the things that are happening, perhaps because of the politics, and perhaps not. Every day you open the newspaper, almost every day there is some woman who is being assaulted. Every month, 2, 3, 4, 5 women are killed in Guyana. And people tend to separate it from the larger politics of the society. Have you been taking note of that development, GHK, and if so, it's
Let me say this.
yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, and it's a very, very vital aspect of our environment, and it's a horrible one. It's a harrowing one. The Ministry of Social Protection has a 914 hotline. It so happens that I think I was writing somewhere about that for somebody, for some in the first up to last week, April 20 something, you had 3,889 calls into the domestic violence hotline. So, yes, some men drink some rum and behave bad, but they are economic pressures. They are economic frustrations, and it is taken out on the home and the children, usually the wife and the children, the young one. So violence that is suppressed, the urge to lash out that is suppressed in public gains full expression in in the home where the defenseless are. Now, let's go extrapolate from inside the house to the wider environment. We've got, before we came in here, I saw somebody send me a clip where the regional chairman, somebody pulled a gun on him over a parking spot. And it had racial connotations to it.
Mhm.
Duran, what's his last name again, please?
They're in Adams.
Adams, right. And a supplier of goods parked in his place, and there was a conversation, and the man pulled out a gun. This is what I read. As to the accuracy of it, I cannot attest to. But here's the thing. So when those things are bottled up inside of us, some of the expression happens in the home. Some of them happen on the roads. Look at how we drive. You talk
Mhm.
about domestic violence. And domestic violence is a national embarrassment and a national humiliation. The way we drive in our limited roads and expanding fleets of cars, vehicles, tells us that we have lost regard for each other. We've lost regard for each other. So if our I was in a church on the west bank of Demerara 2 Sundays ago. I had to go there to proclaim the word. And a member of the government came in, and somebody wanted me to take a picture with him. And I said, no, I'm here to serve. I'm not here for. I said it very. They asked nicely, and I said it nicely. So there was some introduction. I went out to leave, and the taxi's waiting for me. We couldn't get out of the yard because of all the places that a member of the government decided to park was in. He blocked the driveway. I mean, this is a wide open road in a country area. Come on, brother. Come on, folks. So that's what. So if the people in society see this happening, and we do it. We take it out on one another.
Yeah.
And because we are so constituted ethnically, it inevitably, almost invariably takes up that flavor, that strain, that stain. Going back to the dimension, so you're looking at the roads, our traffic. We can't get away from it, and daily it gets worse. And it's not every day is like Christmas season now in Georgetown. I dread going out. The other part about it, the domestic situation is it's a reflection. It's a reflection of the values in our society that have diminished, the regard for women, the regard for our children, our self-respect. Look, none of us are saints here. None of us are holier than thou or right. I don't look upon myself as a righteous man. I look upon myself as somebody who's trying to be a law-abiding citizen. And if I make a mistake, hopefully, God willing, it's a little one. It's not a big, huge thing, you know. So when we hear about men taking the law into their hands and killing their partners, and we hear about, on the other hand, we hear about politically connected people shooting people in the tummy The police comes in because a report is made, and then the matter disappears because somebody's. So where's the sense of justice of this? This happened somewhere in the interior, and the person went over to one of the neighboring countries. The matter disappeared. Nobody wants to file a complaint. But at the end of the day, that was attempted murder in my book. That was a felony, and so the ordinary citizen look on this and say, "Hey, is there no law in this country, or are there different standards of law?" And so people take the law into their hands in the home, on the roads, in their relationships. And yes, it's off script, but it is a contributory factor, or it is a result, a consequence of where we are. And this is in simple terms.
Yes, a consequence of where we are. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back on the other side, we will continue our conversation with Mr. Lall.
There is abuse of spouse, battered housewives in the streets, in the homes. I have one solution, and it's the only solution. If you can't agree to disagree. Otherwise, they will read on the tombstone, return if possible. The name of my song is entitled Runaway. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. You love, she bursting with joy. She give you a baby boy. Little did she know you wanted a man. Your next lady friend couldn't make the grade. No, she said I'm wondering what to do. How to get away. How to get away. How to get away from you. Daughters run away. Fathers run away. Just run away when you're treating them bad. Partners run away. Powders run away. What happened to you? Woman, you could run away too. Get out. Don't take that. You went and you put gold teeth in she mouth. As all you get vex, you coughing it out. You making she shame all over the place. Man, you is a damn disgrace. Not even to church, now she cannot go. She beg for little love, you telling she no. And she fighting like hell to make up a plan. How to get away. How to get away. How to get away from you. Hawkers run away. Powders run away. Lady captains run away. When man cheating them bad. Hawkers run away. Captains run away. Don't say the man squeal. Woman, put 2 wheels on your heels. Get out. Don't you run. And don't turn back. Run. Take your child and run. Back to mama. Back to papa. It ain't easy to be a battered wife and getting abused the rest of your life. When family come, you just have to smile and pretend that he's so nice. When he drink and drunk, well, now we can't be. You just have to wonder if he kill breeze. His licks left and right and all in your head. Woman, run away. Look, woman, run away. Run before he kill you dead. Run. Daughters run away. Powders run away. Lady captains run away. Man cheating them bad. Hawkers run away. Doctors run away. If you know you don't treat your woman nice, start checking up now. You take my advice. Don't let she have cause to fly out the coop. Woman never run from good. No, 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 no. When she give you food, just tell she it's real. Hold the lady hand when she cross the street. Just do as I say, handle she with care, and she'd never run away. She would never run away. She would never run away from you. No, no. Because dogs run away, hawkers run away, jackasses run away when man cheated them. Cactus run away, them dogs run away. You'd sit up and squeal. She would put two wheels on she heels. She would get out. She go run. Back to mama. She go run. Back to papa. Bomb doodle. Houston daughter. You know I love you.
Yes, that's the singing Francine. Singing Francine, one of the sweetest voices that Calypso has ever produced. You know, some people feel that Calypso Rose has the sweetest voice. I go for GHK. Some thoughts on what we just heard.
Well, it seems we've been running all our lives. You were, I don't know where you are today. Are you in Arizona?
Yes, I happen
Yeah.
to be still in the desert.
Yeah, good. Well, as you know, I have been over there for decades. Now I hear singing Francine saying, leave the thing alone. Culturally, we have inhibitions against that. It look bad. It look bad. What you gonna do? How you gonna look after the children? There's a stigma attached, and on and on and on. That has been handed down, and it's an effort to keep the family together. And sometimes there are fatal consequences.
Yeah.
And if it's not fatal, it can be harrowing. And we are having too many of those in Guyana for too long. For too long. Can we do more? We can always do more. As neighbors, as citizens, and as bystanders. Now, the first thing is we've got to look out for ourselves. But too many of us are silent. Too many of us looking at the runaway from the domestic violence part, which I think is sensible and constructive and healthy. Lots of us are still running away despite the fact that we have the label quite accurately as being the richest people in the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Who, as I heard singing Francine, nobody does run away from good, right? So why we lining up? Why we lining up in front of Juke Street or paying, I don't know, what's their money for go backtrack or something, you know? So this we are running away. We are running away from the home. We are running away from the homeland. And we are still doing that. I would have thought that with all of this fabulous news, that we would be saying, look, everybody's coming here. The Venezuelans are coming here. The Americans and the Europeans are coming here. I mean, they're investors, but everybody wants a piece of this action. 36% economic growth? Come on. When the rest of the Caribbean is at 3.5%, we are 11% more than everybody else. Not 11%, I'm sorry. 11 times more. The closest people, I think, were the St. Vincent and Grenadines, and won the World Bank, and ECLAC had Antigua Barbuda. And they're all in the single digits. They're both in the single digits. We are 36%. And people still lining up in front of the embassy. People still doing what Singer Francine recommended. Run away. Left the thing alone if it ain't good. And if it's not been good for many Guyanese, and primarily some across the board, but primarily, and we come back to the same situation, which is ugly, that we have Amerindian Guyanese and African Guyanese and Indo Guyanese also. So across the spectrum, we are We are not feeling, we are not tasting, we are not knowing, we are not experiencing the richness of our resource, of our wealth. It is not coming down to us, trickle down. Yeah, you get a handout and yeah, they tell you we've subsidized this or that. But every week, Starbucks News carries that thing about cost of living and the impact on people. And they've covered, I think this week was number 21. And I wanted to comment on that, but something else intruded. But part of those cost of living pressures, frustrations, and embarrassment, the lack of self esteem that you can't provide for your family explodes in the house. It explodes in the house. And if there's liquor involved, it's exponentially expanded. So there are linkages to these things that are obvious and some that are not so obvious, but they're there. They're the current. Yes, we hear all the good news, and the good news. Let me say this, as a fairly mathematically oriented guy and somebody who has studied business and business disciplines and at advanced levels, those numbers are accurate. Whoever does them, they are accurate. We per capita, given the small population and the billions of oil we got, and at this number of dollars per barrel, etc., and our share, it's blah blah blah. But why are so many of our people hungry? Why are so many of our people frustrated in the home that the only thing that they can resort to is violence against the weaker? We're women now. Listen to this. And I want to stay on this a moment longer. Where women now are saying it's self-defense. And
Yeah.
they've actually killed their abusive partner. Now, whether it's so or not, and I see someone being charged, and I'm like, this shouldn't be. Especially if no, stories can be made up, and especially if there's a history of domestic violence, and somebody's fearing for their lives. Somebody's fearing that look, I'll be battered here and damaged for life. The trauma is already there. So yes, we have that. Where Francine says, "Run away." Cow don't take them. Dog don't take them. So why should you take it? Why should anybody take it? And so, in the political and the social context, we've got all this money and we've got the government saying to you, well, look, y'all, they're good. But people are saying, no, we're not. And this is not a bed of roses and heaven and whatever. But Minister Ben says Guyana is heaven on earth, right? I didn't thought he would. I didn't. Anyhow, that's another time. So
Yes.
the story is in the social and political environment, we have those who are the have-nots. And the have-nots are there's no way for them to run other than to stay here and said, look, I got to get my piece of the share. I am a son of the soil. Therefore, this a piece belongs to me. And some people are going to say, look, we're going to fight for this. It's going to come to that inevitably. It may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year. But some people are going to say, I don't like what is going on, the inequity of it, the resentments that come from it, and the antagonisms that flare from it. And that is why I write and say, let's not go down that road. Let us hear when people like me write and say, you know what, I'm not looking to bash you, I'm looking to open your eyes and say, this is our reality and it should not be. It is our reality and it should not be. And there are things that we can be and do. But they're like, okay, you're a naysayer, you're a critic, you're a dissenter. Well, look, it's not something I want to wear, but if it's a badge or a brand that is placed there, then I'm in good company. Jesus was, the Prophet Muhammad was, Patrice Lumumba was, Martin Luther King was, Gandhi was, Mandela was. I'm in good company, and I'm in good company in all. Critchlow, he could have sat down yesterday was Labor Day. He could have sat down and said, well, look, they pay me some wages, it's not livable, you know, we can take what we get and go along. But those guys stood up and Jagan could have said, hey, um, the classes that were commandeering the wealth, right, and didn't want to be taxed. Burnham could have said, well, let the bauxite stay here, right? And let the bauxite stay with, what was it, Reynolds or Alcan or whomever.
Mhm.
And down the line we go. The part of the pathos and the tragedy of Guyana is that we have leaders today who I can't separate them from the people I left, the Americans I left. I can't separate them. They have become whiter than the white bread people. They are defending the people who are exploiting us. And that is what rankles. Stand up and say, well, look, we are living with this and we are going to struggle to get, we're going to fight to get more. We're going to look to ease the plight of the Guyanese people that are statistically so rich so they can actually feel it and prosper. So I am not running away. I'm too old to run. That's the first thing. And I'm too slow. And I'm too slow.
GHK Lall, and it gladdens my heart as someone who studies and teach the calypso. One always know that there's always more than one meaning to calypso. And here is the calypsonian singing about domestic violence. But she frames it in such a way that we can lift it to the national level, as Brother Gabriel just did, that we are experiencing domestic violence from our government. From our government. Domestic violence from our government. And many are running away. Many are running away. The Calypsonian always telling us, Sparrow Singh said, cough up the mouth and bust up your mouth, and she love you eternally. And then in the last stanza, the last line, he said, and then she leaves you eternally. I remember I grew up near to a rum shop, and I remember listening to Sparrow and singing, and a man named Mr. Saltfish, he called me, he said, bye. You know what Sparrow said? I said, yeah, he talking about when you beat up women, they stay and love you. He said, all right, wait. Me go ask Robert for playback that calypso. He go in and he let Robert play back the calypso. And when he get to the last line, he said, listen, I never forget from that day that when you're listening to the calypso, listen keenly.
David, excuse me. Let me interject, and I'm sorry about this.
Yes,
Sparrow also later sang Only a Fool Breaks His Own Heart.
Bestseller is bestseller. The most interesting, he sang calypso all his life, but the ballad that he sang, that song, right. I think it was 20 odd years on the charts in the Netherlands. His bestseller. Yes. Well, we are being true Caribbean people, Guyana-Caribbean people here, that we cannot tell our stories without reverting to our art, our music, our dance, our written word, because often that's where the thing comes from. The thing comes from deep inside our Caribbean belly, as David Rudder said in that song Calypso. Gabriel, when we were here the last time, this story about the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs was just breaking. And it's been 2 weeks, and we haven't gotten much further in terms of the government forthcoming or the permanent secretary forthcoming. There is still a lot of speculation, but by now we could be forming some opinions. Could we?
Yes, we can. The government has caught itself in a puzzle, or with its back against the wall. If it opens its mouth, it's going to get in trouble, right? So the best thing to do is to say nothing. Don't say anything for fear of committing itself. It's best people think that you're stupid and open your mouth and prove it. And that's where the government is. Look, we've got a problem here, and it's a serious one. The permanent secretary is the managing director for national security, for internal security, police, prisons, passport, traffic, surveillance cameras, ports of entry. She is that number one public servant in that stream of responsibility and activity. For her to have been, let's go in reverse order as the information came out, reverse sequence. She was already on a watch list. Our permanent secretary on a watch list. Now, has anything changed? Look at where we are. I seem to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, a former commissioner of police, Mr. Green, his visa was revoked. And a former minister, Mr. Gadraj, his visa was revoked also. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you
And
do.
now we have the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs, this most sensitive of ministries, and the government can't say no. And the permanent secretary put out a statement, and I'm holding my head and I'm saying, oh God, you did but you shouldn't. You should have left this thing. But she came out and some people call it bland and benign and whatever. Look, it was so pale as almost to be colorless, right? The thing had no substance inside. Whoever wrote it for the permanent secretary, it 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 speaks for itself. The government is in an embarrassing situation given the nature of who the permanent secretary, the Ministry of Home Affairs is. Now, that phone, that phone is a mother load. That phone is a mother load of intelligence. Now, let's be realistic here. Practically, the Americans know everything we're going on here, right? Americans know everything we're going on here.
Yeah.
They know what's going on in the bottom house. They know what's going on in the villages. They know what's going on in the roadhead. So here's the story. They know who corrupted the police, right? They were watching the PS for a while. She's on this watch list now, officially. And they were monitoring her. And I think they're monitoring a whole set of conversations. So in that phone, one time is personal, the next time going to China, so she trying to put up a E2 visa, and the story go wrong and wrong and wrong. So Churchill, we said, is our mystery wrapped in a riddle, in an enigma and all them business. This is where the PPP government finds itself. Like I've always said in my writings, do the thing straight and you don't have to be backpedaling. You ain't got to make no excuse. You ain't got to apologize to nobody. Say, look, this is my story. These are the books. And you look at it and you come and tell me where you stand then. You understand? So this is it. The permanent secretary should have been a more sensible official. She should be wiser in terms of her relationships. And she said, look, you want this phone? Uh, This is what got inside. But clearly there is a tremendous amount of dissonance between the PPP government and the American government. And who else is on watch lists that we don't know about? Who else is being monitored in some different way in different ministries that that the secrets are out there? The secrets are secrets for us in Guyana, but not to the Americans. You can't look. These people were able to listen to what's her name again? Angela Merkel.
Yes.
Yes, if they can do that, the Americans sold my Chinese friends in Beijing some planes. I think it was Boeing. And when the people stripped down the plane, it had some devices inside to listen to them. So what they didn't do to we? We ain't even got some telephones that work in properly and internet. I mean, we're doing better than before. Thank God for that. But the fact is, look, this is a serious story, so I shouldn't be laughing. I feel for the permanent secretary, but she has made her bed, and so she got to live with it. She lie down with dogs, excuse me, folks. So the fleas now there because problem with the PPP government, it is that everything it does is counter. Almost 99% of what it does, it can't come and face the people and say, look, we stood for this. This is who we are. And this, no, you got to do all this bobbing and weaving. We got to do all this dancing around. And 2 weeks later, that there's no official definitive statement that, look, something went wrong here, and we are looking into it, and we'll be back to you shortly. They tell you about one time about multiple personalities or some multiple identities. I think that was the Honorable Vice President. I don't know. He become a what do you call it now? He become a psycho. What do you call him? Analyst. And he should make pictures like Psycho with Norman Bates and them. And the president, His Excellency, comes out and said something about what was it? No, I don't think he said misunderstand, but it was some sort of throwaway line like "Don't bother me with this thing," or "Look, the Americans are watching and they're pretty unhappy with what's going on here. They're sending signals to the Guyana government, straighten up your act." My concern here, going on the other direction, and people ain't gonna like hear this, is that the opposition has been the main opposition, PNC, has been so slack with these opportunities to blow bugles. And look, Mr. Norton is trying, but he can't be the lone ranger out there. He can't be the only one talking. Where's the shadow minister of Home Affairs? Where is the AFC leader? We name again, Mr. Former Minister of Home Affairs himself. He got to be able to weigh on this and weigh on this sharply and authoritatively. He has not done so. Well, whatever he's done, it's not enough. Good. Mr. Norton needs people to be around him to say, look, they get a gift from the United States, just like they get a gift with Sue. And I understand Sue surface again, Mr. Sue, in some pictures with the same permanent secretary.
Yes.
I don't know if it's authentic or so. Where is this connection ending? Where does this connection begin and where does it end? A phone, a permanent secretary, and the people say, we ain't give you back no phone, right? Because it's part of some bigger picture, which we expect. Now, what's gonna happen now? You tell me something. Government officials are going to walk with a different phone when they go to the United States, or they're not going to go to the United States at all. Here, let me tell you something. Let me tell our audience something here and now. The president, whatever's going on in his head, I respectfully tell the president, please don't think a tie-in bundle. Please don't think a tie-in bundle with China. If we've been some way by Afghanistan or something, yes. Or close to Africa, yes. We are in the America backyard, so don't worry and think you're going to do too much business with them and you're going to turn your back on them. They put you in office and going to take you out. They're going to take you out just as quickly. Good? So this aisle is here, the Americans say, and this is where we are. I think the PS story has got more, what is it, martyr to the pestle? I say, got it wrong.
Yeah, more in the martyr than the pestle.
Right.
Yes. GHK, only a couple of weeks ago, I find myself now, partly because sometimes people have to tell me what was said by people like the vice president and so on. So I have decided to dedicate a couple of hours at night to look at what others are saying. And I find myself listening or looking at the vice president's press conferences, not because he's saying wonderful things and that I can learn things, but because he's the chief spokesperson for the government. And only a couple of weeks ago, this man was carrying on about the sale of the Marriott. It makes economic sense. You know, you sell when the thing making profit, and he blasting people who saying, well, if the thing making profit, keep it and let the government make more money, and he carry on. And then 2 weeks later, he comes and say, we're not selling no more. What's going on there? You are the businessman here, not me.
This is the kind of business me want to get into at all.
Make a bring
I
out
mean,
the box.
didn't
Make
even
a bring
want to talk about. I
make
didn't
a bring
want to
out the
talk about
box
it.
laugh there.
Listen, the origins of the Marriott itself is a whole chapter, shabby chapter in Guyanese political history. Okay, no, no. Let's go. Let's fast forward to where we are today. You put up the thing for sale. Yes, the government should not be in the business of hotel management and hospitality sector and the competition coming. No, look. If 65 million US dollar, forget about the man that had an SEC bar against him. That expired 7 years ago. And it's my book that everybody is due a second chance, etc. Although it's a major thing. 65 million US dollars. And I'm saying, man, this thing here worth a lot of money. But the fact is, that's not enough according to the VP. So here's a couple of things. You can look bad if you give a man once and a nice gonna make here. He's gonna look bad if he give if the bid is going to the highest bidder. And I was saying to somebody, I said, why not local content? Why not Mr. Badal? And I think Mr. Badal is a problem because it's a political, they end up on the same page. They're not necessarily opponents. So now we get down the line. The third consideration is perhaps the government. I don't know if it's the VP or who. And usually when you talk about the government, it's the VP we talk about, right? Let me get it straight. The government had somebody, a favorite bidder, somebody that want to win the bid, but he didn't step up or he didn't step up enough. So you can look real bad for saying, hey, you take the thing. We are awarding this bid to you. So they get caught however you want, put it, pants down, napping, whatever. No, so here's where I want to take this. So it's not $65 million. It's how much? 75? No, but no auctioneer is going to come up and say, well, look, this is the amount we're looking for. No, it don't work so. But somewhere in the government head, they got Miss Dr. Jack Davis head, there got to be something that said, well, there's 100 million US dollar, drop dead. It's 100. I mean, so I come back now, 75 is not 65. And clearly it's not 66 or 70. It got to be something considerably more. Let's talk as reasonable people here. So it's 75, is 90, is 100, is up north of 100. So we come back. This Marriott franchise hotel is a gold mine. It is a gold mine and is one worth keeping and exploring, at least in my book, for the next 3 years. Here, why do you think British Airways coming in? And American Airlines and JetBlue. So you got three. There's the three we're remembering right now. I'm sure they got others lined up, whether it's Lufthansa and KLM or whoever. Maybe they're not here as yet. But you got three big airlines coming in. We got the airport ready for now. You're talking about 600 people here a day if you have daily flights from them. I don't think you may have. So you're looking, let's say they have 3 flights a week. So you're looking at 600 by three. You're looking at 2,000 visitors. Take out 1,000 for Guyanese coming back, right? 1,000. No, nothing to invest or stay at hotels. You're going to stay at family. You got 1,000 visitors that you've got to accommodate, provide hospitality for. You got a Pegasus, you got Dawn, you got a couple of. So really, and hotels, yes, the competition is going to increase and the prices are going to drop. But let me tell you something. I have traveled extensively in Europe and Latin America and North America. I had Marriott points. I went to Europe and come back free, stay in the hotel free. All I had to do was buy drinks and food for a week and still give away points. Here is this Marriott, Westin, Hilton, Sheraton, still. We don't have that complement of hotels now. So I think that the timing for the sale of the Marriott is wrong. The vice president is a smarter man than that. But given all the secrecy with the Marriott from day one to now, I am asking myself, what kind of skullduggery he up to now with the sale of this marriage and telling me this Nancy story about, well, we're not in the business of hotel and the competition. Hold on to the thing for 3 years. When the competition step up, look back and say, here, we've made so much money off of it. It's a good investment and you can boast money. And so that's, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, and you take it off the market. So for all you don't want Badal forget it, maybe he people ain't got it, and you gonna look bad for give this Yankee fella the thing. And I noticed the U.S. ambassador. I don't know if she put in a word for him, but after the man come, 1 month after this, he'll say, "Oi, the Marriott is up for sale." Here, let me don't left out anybody of what going on in this country. This place here is a hunting ground, right? And we got the right kind of government for make it possible. You come and we can deal with you. We can deal with that kind of business.
Gabriel, the last time you were here, you said you were leaning more towards the WPA's position of not participating and boycotting the election. 2 weeks have passed. We have had nomination and we have had some revelations. Some revelation, but you're a Bible man, so you know the weight of revelation. We have had some revelations. Are you still leaning towards not voting and not participating, or are you
I,
thinking? Are you
I,
thinking that? Go right ahead.
I ain't leading a fasting down there. Right? Hear the story.
Uh-huh.
Oh, again, I'm looking at the opposition leader, and he come up with some gems. He's like, here, 30 signatures. The man dead, the candidate dead. Among the people who signed as a signatory is the wife who dead, and there is forgery here. I think in the Walter Lawrence's name was added to a line in one of those things there, and she get charged. What happened in here?
Yeah.
The bigger story now is that if you got forget dead people for put up a candidate and get dead people for sign for them and 130 such signatures, right? Then that can be the whole iceberg, right?
Right.
So in other words, there's more when you part the kimono, as the Japanese would like to say, they got a lot of thing there. They got a lot of secrets there. So this is where no, the opposition put out this thing, and the Snorter said, "Look, we've got a problem here." And he got a GCOM, and GCOM tell him that they can and they ain't whatever. And the magistrate and the police report was made. Procedurally, I think that the opposition must be commended for following the steps. Where I depart from the honorable leader of the opposition is, well, what happened, man? You gotta raise the temperature a little bit more, right? So you argued everything is procedural. There needs to be a sense on the other side that these people are serious. So when you step in forward on Hallam forgery and rigging, quite rightly, quite accurately, and then you step back, right? You step back and say, well, let us look, let us go from a different thing. I think I am hearing that the boycott of the elections sounds like a stronger and a better proposition all the time. Because my understanding is that in one of the remote regions, the PPP went to some people and said, "Hey, David, you just get this little part-time work, we just get $10,000 a month, right? Right? We just get $10,000 a month. We just get 10,000. Excuse me, I'm sorry, folks.
Yeah.
We just get $10,000 a month, and you know your name shouldn't be on the list. Your name shouldn't be a candidate. We got to reconsider, right? And so on and so forth, right? And and that is the problem there. People are being intimidated. They ain't got nothing else to hold on. And so the local government elections, and I don't have the full story here, is that every every stop is pulled out and used to the PVP's advantage. So right away, the LGE has taken on this aura and this reality of the fix is in, right? So I think to participate in it is to give it legitimacy, right? Is to give it legitimacy. Me, I'm saying, listen, I deal with this thing. I deal. So let's go back to Coma's call 2 weeks ago. I said, looking like it got more relevance now. It only got relevance. It got resonance. It has relevance and resonance even more so today because here it got more like that. It's just that it has been unearthed, or to use your biblical book, it's revelation. The revelations have not surfaced to this point, right? PPP don't do thing half measures, halfway. So right, they got plenty more like the incident, just they haven't been uncovered as yet.
It hasn't been uncovered. At long last, the report from the Commission of Inquiry into the 2020 elections surfaced. It surfaced at a time when the PNC has been doing some diligent work, as you pointed out, in bringing to the fore some skullduggery. 2020 taught us that elections can be easily rigged in Guyana, and that the rigging starts long before election day. What we are seeing now as we begin to look at this local government election is that the rigging actually starts before nomination day. That you can have a commission of inquiry that hears one side of a story that probably get about 6 sides. Ignore the side. The recount is there. There are reports by the police that people voted who were not, and the Commission of Inquiry into the conduct of the elections said nothing about those things. GCOM said that it can't carry out a review of its own election that it's conducted. What's happening here, GHK, Lall?
You know, the last elections, the less I have to talk about it and deal with it, is better for my sanity.
Yes,
No.
yes, that's why I
The
feel
first thing about that, 2019, 2020 was a really traumatic time for this country. And it's really something that's not easily forgettable. Now, if you really want to get to the bottom of what went on in 2020, you can't limit it to just March 2nd and 3rd and 4th. Well, leave out March 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on. My trouble with that report starts with the terms of reference.
Yeah.
The terms of reference speaks to a unilateral set of orders, marching orders, to the commissioners, and this is what it's going to be. This is your scope, and this is the extent of it. Here is the key to this. It was a national elections. You had a number of parties contesting.
Yeah.
Only one party, the ruling party, the government party, that having all the input, all the say into the terms of reference for that commission of inquiry. I would have thought that if you really want a bona fide and a comprehensive inquiry, and we all want to know that, let us get the opposition involved, so he can say, look, in addition to these features in the terms of reference, let us have I put forward these things on behalf of not only myself, the major PNC/AFC, APNU umbrella, but these other people. This is what came out of them. No such courtesy, no such hand was extended. And so what we have is a PPP government creature, the COI. So you have a premeditated set of terms, right? You have a procedures that are laid out, followed. And so you all along you have in mind a predetermined outcome. And that's what you get. And that's what you get. What I notice is that the commission, lambasting the trio and others, you have people who have matters in the court. It's part of their rights not to say anything here that could be utilized in the courts and incriminate them. So therefore, for them to stand down, that was appropriate. Here's the other thing, which is even, I think, more egregious. There is something going on in the judiciary involving that same election. So, and the judiciary, as far as I hear, is supposed to be independent, a separate arm, and so on and so forth. The president, who has every right to name any kind of a commission to engage in any kind of inquiry on any matter, decides in his wisdom to form a commission of inquiry, empower a commission inquiry into the national elections of 2020, whilst this business going on in the judiciary involving the same elections. Don't tell me about redundancy here and duplication.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
here, to me, is the kindest thing I can say is that it doesn't make sense. The other thing is, where is the regard for the work, what's going on in the realms of jurisprudence? Where is the regard for that? Where is it? You could do that. You could do it later, but you are coming now and you're really superseding, and you want you outcome, you way at your time. Interestingly, and I think we are running out of time here.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the that report had a little mystery to it too. It's got April 2023. It doesn't have a specific date. All the signatures at the bottom, including our own former chancellor, has their names, and at the top has April. You think of 1 to 30. It just got April 2023. My understanding is that this report was finished and the PPP sat on it to use it for their purposes. Look at what happened now. Make the connection. The PNC come out and holler, forgery and rigging and skullduggery. Out comes the chief spokesman for the PPP government, the Honorable Vice President, pull out the backpack in the report for distract his people and the nation and say, look, you see, this is what they're doing on March 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and whatever. This is what the commission. So he ain't want to talk about dead people. He don't want the world to know about that. And so he comes up with these red herrings and these distractions time and again. Now, when he doesn't do one, when he doesn't come up with one and say, is mom tea today, like he having a bad day or what, right? And that is where we are today. The last thing I want to say about the Commission of Inquiry is this. It made some recommendations. Reform this and campaign finance. Those things were made during the 2020 elections by the EU and the OAS, among other people. I go so far, I think, if I recall right, CARICOM also.
CARICOM, yes.
Fix the thing. Why are we talking 2.5 years later? Why some other body gonna come now 2.5 years later and say, hello, you need to reform these things and get them in order if you're going to have, credible elections. So we're talking the same thing over and over, and the PPP is talking where it is and leaving we where we are.
Where we are. GHK Lall there tonight. It's obvious that you all have really enjoyed this program. Not enjoy in the sense of joyousness, but in terms of the incisiveness of the comments and the perspectives here tonight. And I managed to get a couple of them on the screen, but as usual, native intelligence kicks in. People feel that they have to go down to where people are, but often when you respect your people and you take the conversation, as the brothers would say, to another level, the people come with you to that level. Because all we are doing, Brother Gabriel, is what Guyana says. We are taking the people's experiences, refine them, and giving them back to the people as political and cultural nourishment. That is why we can have this kind of conversation. Closing thoughts, my brother.
Well, look, I'm energized and I'm gratified to share these little snippets with our fellow brothers and sisters wherever you are, and I thank you for the opportunity. We've got a lot going on here, and can we can make some progress. It's not going to be easy, but we have to start out that what we do, it's going to be on the straight and narrow politically. That's not religion, folks. We've got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to face our demons. We've got to look each other in the eye and say, whatever you want to call it, truth and reconciliation, healing and mending, brotherhood and fellowship. Here's the bottom line. We are hurting as a society, and we hurt ourselves when we allow our politics to intrude in every aspect of our lives and govern and dictate who we are. And that I will not allow, and you should not too. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, my brother, and see you in 2 weeks. And to you, our audience, I can't say how much I love you all, because this work cannot be done without every one of you. Those of us who talk, and we have the platform, that platform is as strong as you all make it. And as I always say, it is that old lady that walked me across the street, across the public road, when the traffic was heavy. That lady who was selling in front of the school when I didn't have enough money to buy the little snack, the plantain chip, the mitai, that take what I get. That person in my village who always said, "Buy you go far." That person who rebuked me when I talk out of turn. Those people are responsible for this bully pulpit, if you will call it, this megaphone that people like me have today. It's not our megaphone. It's not our microphone, it's yours. It's you. Because you are empowering us to do this work every day, every night. And I salute you. I salute you for that. I could be here talking to 20 or 30 people instead of hundreds. You have made this possible. I'm eternally grateful. And I love you. See you tomorrow night. We're going to have the trade unionists here to talk about the Labor Day messages of yesterday. Good night. And as always, let's keep our heads up.